everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Dr. Melody Smith and I'm a clinical psychologist. On this channel I make videos for aspiring clinical psychologists on their journey to becoming clinical psychologists. In today's video I'll be sharing tips for when preparing for your clinical psychology doctorate interviews. If you have made it this far and you have been offered an interview, I just want to take this opportunity right now to say well done. That's amazing. What you have done is you have clearly demonstrated that you meet the minimum criteria to train as a clinical psychologist, and by giving you an interview, what the clinical psychology courses are telling you is that they want to know more about you and that you have a shot at getting your place on training. Because there's so much that can come of the interview, naturally going into the interview it can be really nerve-wracking and there can be a lot of pressure on performing in the interview, and so it can just be a very, very difficult and stressful time for aspiring clinical psychologists. This video is for anybody who is preparing for the clinical psychology doctorate interviews and would like to know what I did when I was preparing for the clinical psychology doctorate interviews, and most importantly, what I learned from doing the first interview, which went really, really badly, to a couple of years later, my second interview where I got a place. So here we go. It is ultimately your responsibility to prepare and perform in the interview. So I really just from the offset want to just hand back that responsibility. Everybody has a different story, everybody has different experiences, and your interview is going to be different to everybody else's. There's nothing I can tell you specifically or give to you that will make you ace the interview. So being able to own your own prep means that you can direct your attention in the ways that is going to be the most meaningful and mean that you're going to get the most out of it. Always be asking yourself, what is the most meaningful thing I could be doing in order to prepare myself for the interviews? And by meaningful, I mean, what is the thing that is going to make me feel like I've moved along a step in terms of being prepared? The benefits of owning your own prep and making sure that you draw out maybe a timetable or you draw out what your prep is going to look like is that you can be relatively sure that you're getting the most out of your time. So you are focusing on the areas that are going to be the most helpful for you. Also, if you map out what your preparations are going to look like, what your revision is going to look like in advance, then you can be more sure that you're covering a broader range of topics and that you'll be prepared to answer a broader range of interview questions. You can have a look at what you've already covered and what you've got left to cover, and it just makes it that little bit easier to track your progress. So you can have a look back and check things off. I personally find that really rewarding. Plan out how you're going to use your resources. So it might be that you have, certain people that are available to you. Maybe there's a clinical psychologist that works in your department that has offered some time, and you can have a think about, okay, when is the most helpful time for me to ask this clinical psychologist to support me? Maybe you might want to ask them to do a mock interview with you just before you do your interviews, but you might want to ask a friend of yours who has recently got onto the course to support you a bit earlier on. So you're really thinking strategically and carefully about how you're using your resources so you can get the very best out of them. So what things should you be thinking about preparing? As I say, everybody's journey is slightly different, and so you've got to really think about what's important for you. But just some ideas. Think about what resources you have available to you. So we're talking about people that are available to you that might be able to support. It might be articles, or it might be certain bits of stationery that you find helpful to use. Figure out what you have available to you and list them down. Then you want to think about what resources or activities you need to do in order to make yourself feel more prepared. So have a think. Think about the things that you know in your heart of hearts that you would like to brush up on, be a bit more clued up on, and really plan those things. Write them down so that you know how much you've got to cover, and then you can have a think about how you distribute those topics and activities over the time frame that you have available. So being really systematic in how you're approaching your revision and your preparations for the interview. Have a think about how you learn best. So if you know that you learn best by speaking, then, incorporate speaking into it. Maybe you might scheduling some time to speak to a friend or somebody in your family about some of the work that you've been doing so that you can get that practice, or scheduling in times to do different types of activities so that you're using the way that you best learn, so that you're more likely to remember the information. For some people, they like to write flashcards. Other people like to remember with mnemonics. So really think about what it is that helps you to learn and plan that in so that you're using those strategies to boost your learning and boost your memory. Focus the content of what you prepare around what's going to be in your interview. So do go back, have a look at what the letter says they're going to be covering, what types of interviews you're going to have, and then of course match your preparations with what's going to be covered. So for example, if you've already been tested on research methods, maybe it would be more helpful for you to spend more time covering kind of more clinical areas or areas about yourself. And lastly, be real with yourself and build in barrier busters. I don't know about you, but I find it much easier to prepare for things when I've got that bit of pressure, time pressure. And what we don't want to do is wait until the last minute to prepare for the interview, because you get less out of it really. Procrastination, worry, and if you know that you're one to procrastinate or to worry about things, be real, acknowledge that that might be a barrier to you doing your revision and your preparations, and try to find ways around that procrastination or worry or that barrier. So for example, if it were me and I know that sometimes I like to wait until the last minute, I might ask somebody to hold me accountable and ask me what I've covered on certain days, so that if I haven't done it, somebody knows about it and I'll feel a bit bad. So yeah, own your own prep. Your journey to your clinical psychology doctorate training is your journey, and you have to take responsibility for it and ownership over it, because you're the one who's going to shine in the interviews. I hope these tips for interview have been helpful. I welcome any comments below. I've been Dr. Melody Smith. See you next time.